Hello everyone, welcome back to another redstone tutorial. Today we're going to be going over the third shopping machine in this little lineup of design. This one here performs the function that the other two don't, and the fact that you can sell lots of more cheap items for a single diamond apiece, but it still has the same functionality that it's completely automatic with stock keeping and automatic resetting and everything like that. You can also see here it has the same basic setup as the other two, where we have an item filter in the center with a little slowdown on the side. But the way it keeps track of stock and actually dispenses the items is slightly different than the other two. So first of all, we have this item filter here with the slowdown just like normal. But instead of actually slowing down the rate so that way this flashes correctly, we just need to delay the next item coming through the system in time so that way it can lock itself. So what we do here is when this redstone dust gets powered, because the item filter triggers, we use some 1.16 redstone here to power this block because it's being redirected into it. And what this does is it powers this dropper with a single stackable item in it. It has to be a stackable item, otherwise it'll break your item filter here. This will then shoot the item up into the hopper, and since we're powering it using this block right here, it at the same time locks this hopper and keeps the comparator on. So the item will stay in there until everything is done before moving back down. So what this does is it sends out a signal strength of 1 because it's a single stackable item, which will lock this in time to prevent the next item from coming in. So in order to keep that locked, what we have over here on the side is a hopper clock that is just turned into a pulse extender by replacing one of the sticky pistons with a normal piston. So when this is triggered, this piston gets a little update, which pushes the redstone block over. That lets items flow out of this hopper and into the other hopper here. And when that happens, this comparator detects that, turning on this dust, powering the block, and locking the hopper even more. So once all the items have moved over, then this side turns off. The sticky piston will retract, pulling the block over, while this piston pushes it back. Then all the items move back in here, and the system will fall back to this default state. So in order to actually dispense the items to the customer, we just have a block here that powers some redstone on the bottom. That powers that sticky piston right there, just pushing an observer forward and making a little observer clock on the bottom. That powers this dropper right here for however many times. In order to actually get the stock keeping to work on this one, I had to use this system right here as a type of AND gate. Or I guess it'd be more of an OR gate, because it happens this or that. But what happens is when this dropper runs out of stock, it pulls the composter back, turning on this redstone torch. Because this turns off, this inverts the signal. So that powers this dropper, shooting the item up into the hopper. And at the same time, it uses this dropper as a solid block, which locks the hopper. So when you power it from below, the item will stay in that hopper, keeping the system locked until the composter gets pushed back into its normal position. At that point, the torch turns off, letting the item fall back down in. So we can demonstrate that here. See, when we take all the items out of this, that composter turns back, the torch turns on, and the item stays up here. And you can also see here that this sends out a signal strength of 1 on the right hand side. If it was a stackable item, that signal strength would be 3. So it would bleed over into your item filter here and here, which would then let any item flow through and break the actual system itself. When we put the stock back in here, you can see it all resets back to normal. And there are a couple other little tricks in here. Mostly that this lever will redirect this redstone here. If we had a normal redstone cross, like we have in other places here, it would power the dropper next to it when it gets triggered, and then lock this item hopper in here, which would then break the item filter because the actual item itself wouldn't allow it to flow through. On the same note, this block right here, we have to use this type of redstone redirection, because if we were to just use a target block here and redirect it that way, this dust would turn into a line that looks like this. and this does not power the piston for the actual hopper clock to work. So that's why we have to keep it in this state. So with those few little changes in mind, let's get on to the tutorial. So to get started with this one, you're going to need to gather the resources in this chest like normal. This one's a little bit more resource involved than the other two, because it uses a little more comparators, hoppers, and pistons. And also, at the same time, you can do the normal thing and replace a composter with a fill level in it, the cauldron, and a water bucket. That always works. So, we're going to start by grabbing some blocks and coming over here. First of all, you're going to need to dig out a 3 wide by 7 long by 5 high area. And that the only reason it's 7 long is because of the single lever that sticks out, but there wasn't really a way to get around that. So we'll come over here. We'll start by building up from this spot here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, placing the pavement barrel. Then we'll place this barrel here and this barrel here, just like the other machines. You can remove those and set up the item filter like normal. So blocks like that, redstone torch, repeater, dust, and a comparator. Then we'll set up the item filter. So just like the other ones, 18 items in the second slot, 1 in the rest. Then we'll grab diamonds, or whatever your payment is, place 2 in the first. And then 1 will end up here as a placeholder. So now we'll add the slowdown. So a block there, slab there, and another block. Repeater on 2 ticks with the redstone dust there. Now what we'll do is we'll add the dropper and hopper combination over here. So we place a dropper facing upwards right there with a hopper coming out of it. Then what we'll do is we'll place a note block here, and that'll give us a little bit of an update, so that way when this block gets powered, the dropper will actually shoot its item out. Place a redstone dust there, then a block here with a comparator on top of it, and it's okay that that redirects, it's supposed to do that. So then over on this side, what we have to do is place a block here with a dust there, then place a block on top of that to make sure it doesn't connect. And this is where our normal piston will go. And then against this hopper over here is where the sticky piston will go. So then against this block, we need to place 2 hoppers facing back and forth into each other. You can put a redstone block here, then underneath put a block here and a block there with 2 comparators on either side. On this side, we'll have it face into a block with another block next to it. And then on this one, we'll put the redstone lever and the redstone dust next to it. So that completes the clock here. And now we can actually throw some items in if you really want to, but we'll save that for the end when we show you how to configure the system here so it dispenses a certain number of items. So underneath, we'll put a block underneath this here with the dust on it, then a block there and there with dust there, and a repeater here. Then underneath, next to that, we're going to put a sticky piston there. We'll come underneath and place an observer facing downwards. Next, what we'll do is build up here 3 blocks, take out the middle one, and place an observer facing upward, then take out the bottom one. Then we can add in the dropper for the stock right here on the side. And this was pretty much a fully working system. All we have to do is add in a single 64 stackable item into the dropper over here. So, now that we've got all this done, we just need to add in the stock keeping system. To do that, place an observer facing downwards here next to the dropper with a redstone comparator here. And then that will face into a sticky piston here. And then what we'll do is we'll grab the composter and something to fill it with. Place it in front of the sticky piston and fill it up with at least 1 level. Then what we'll do is we'll come here next to this repeater and place a block with a comparator facing this way, with a block in front of it, and then a redstone torch here. And you'll see that locks the system like this, because we don't have any stock in there. So when we put items into the dropper to sell, this will automatically unlock itself. Next we'll place this redstone lamp here, and that's pretty much the final piece of the puzzle. And we'll move on to how to set it up. So the setup for this machine can be a little bit tricky, but it's pretty much as simple as just some trial and error. So there's 3 different ways you can adjust how many items will come out of the machine when you put a diamond in. First of all, this clock down at the bottom. This is just a high-speed clock, so we get as many items out as possible with as few items in the droppers. But if you were to switch this out for a slightly slower clock or a different one that shoots items out at a different rate, you could technically just adjust it that way and be able to get any number of items out. The second way is on the side over here with our actual hopper clock. So first of all, in order to test this, we'll load it up with some items, so maybe redstone dust. It's simple as just filling up that dropper, and it doesn't need to be full. You can have just a stack in there if you really want. And you'll see that turns on the comparator and unlocks the system. So now it's ready for diamonds to actually come in. But if we were to do that right now, it would not really like us because there's no items in the hopper here to slow it down. So what we'll do is we'll grab some junk items, like some stone, and place it into this hopper. Now the first time you place items in here, it will trigger the system once. So let's say we were to put in 4 items, you'll see it'll trigger like this and then reset itself. Once it's in this state, you can freely add or take away items from this hopper without actually triggering the system again. So you'll see that did trigger, and we got 13 items out of it. So with 4 items in this hopper, we'll get 13. So we'll move those back down there, grab some diamonds, and test it out. You'll see it'll trigger itself, and 13 items. So if you wanted to change this, if you wanted more than 13, it's simple as putting another junk item or 2 in here. So we'll go with 7 this time, and testing it again. So you can see this time we got 25 out of it. Maybe that's a little bit too many, so we'll take a couple out. Like that. Move those back down. And with 5 in this example, you'll get 17. So that's the second way to actually adjust the number of items, and it's pretty much the easiest way. You just add or take away items till you get close to the number you want. Unfortunately, it can't hit the even numbers, so like a half a stack or an actual stack, but it can get within 1 or 2 items normally. The third and final way, if you were paying close attention in the beginning, you might have noticed that redstone torch over there. And that is actually the switch between even and odd numbers of items. So right now without the redstone torch, we're in odd numbers. So it's only relying on that clock to trigger it. But as soon as we place this torch, you'll see it actually shoots an item into the barrel because it's triggering the dropper. So if we were to put in a diamond now, this clock will run like normal, but then once the system unlocks itself, the torch will turn back on, triggering the dropper one more time, and this time we have 18 instead of 17. So those are the 3 different ways you can adjust this. Pretty much it's simple trial and error. So that's all for today, but one last correction before we go. Over on the back here on top of this hopper, you might have noticed that you might have a glass block remaining. This can be just any block on top here, and that's just to prevent extra items from falling into your hopper and breaking things when they're not supposed to. But that's all for today. Hope you guys enjoyed watching. Thank you so much, and make sure you leave a like and subscribe.